What's up, you guys? Welcome to episode 440 of the Establishment NBA podcast. I'm Mike Gallagher here with Saum Jafarinia to talk about an ESPN doubleheader. We had some interesting stuff happen with a nice OKC win and then a resounding victory for the Wolves, again beating the Denver Nuggets. We'll talk about what that means with the Wolves getting hot. And then we got to talk about, I'm sure mainstream NBA isn't going to do a whole feature on Jamal Shead, but we're going to talk a lot about that. I've got a lot of thoughts for what was so far the craziest tanking move we've seen of the season. Again, with me to do so, Saum Jafarinia. Saum, how's it going?
I'm great, Mike. It's good to be joining you again. And yeah, excited to recap some of these games. And then, we got quite a bit to talk about the Raptors situation from last night.
Yeah, it's wild, man. I mean, it takes so long to do minutes projections, and we'll talk maybe a little bit about some of the process that we're going through for you guys to give you a little bit of a shot behind the curtain here. But yeah, let's start with the non-tanking stuff. Let's talk about the two best teams in the NBA, at least two of the three, disrespect to the Cavs, with just a really comfortable win. OKC just really controlled their game, played perfect OKC game without Jada, which I want to talk about. Got an incredible game from Chet Holmgren. SGA was himself. Casey Wallace was really good to me. I thought that was big, but really, I mean, the headline was, and I'm sure all the SGA haters will point to the free throw merchanting. The big free throw discrepancy was a pretty big reason for the game, big win, 35-12 there. That was really what Joe Mazzulla talked a lot about, and that's what he blamed it on, which I thought that was a bit of a cop out there. There's a lot of reasons I think why the Celtics lost this game, and there's a little bit of credence to the free throw shooting. That said, though, they had some really stupid fouls. They got into the penalty too early. That foul at the end of the first quarter when they fouled Isaiah Joe, that was a mistake. Really sloppy play, to give up that many free throws. But besides that, if you have any thoughts there, why did OKC? It doesn't look like a big win, but I mean, if they had this game really the whole way through after a really strong start. But besides the free throws, why else do you think OKC took another win from Boston?
Yeah, I mean, and I think the sloppiness from the Celtics that you were mentioning is really what stood out, and it felt like the entire game, right? Where it never
Mm-hmm.
felt like Boston was ever getting in any kind of rhythm or whatever, and like right when they're making any run and end of quarters, we saw just some really non-Celtics kind of play, and we were talking a little bit during that game about this was not a good Missoula game as far as
Mm-hmm.
scheme and everything, and just on the Thunder standpoint, I think you mentioned at the beginning talking about Case and Wallace and the versatility of this team after the two games against Denver, you really see, right? Where they go, against Nikola Jokic, they start with their big lineup, of course. And then today, even,
Mm-hmm.
they're missing J-Dub, they're missing Alex Caruso as well, but still they have the versatility where they slot Case and Wallace in the starting lineup. He's awesome. He gives them great minutes. And it's just a really complete win for them. And,
Mm-hmm.
shout out to OKC. They had a tough loss against Denver game before, but really nice bounce back win for them.
Yeah, that was pretty. I was watching a little bit of ESPN pregame, and they had this whole big segment about how OKC's been going big, and like I did the injury show. I was like, yeah, they're probably starting small here. Yeah, and I want to get the numbers because it was pretty effective when they did go double big that run in the second half. Yeah, they used it for 11 minutes yesterday off the bench, and they were about even, +8. But most of that was in the non SGA minutes. I thought that was really the big thing because that's kind of why I thought Boston would have this game. I thought
Mhm.
the non-SGA minutes, which killed them in the second half against the Nuggets. The Nuggets obviously made a lot of shots, but this ability for Casey Wallace to control the game flow and Chet Holmgren, who I want to talk about separately, was really a big story. But the game they got out of Casey Wallace to be able to control that second unit and guard Jaylen Brown extremely well, who we'll talk about. But yeah, I thought that this was just one of my takeaways. I thought was like, I think Mark Dagnall's the best coach in the NBA, man. Like Eric Spoelstra, I listened to him in the pressers, and I'm like so sick of Spoelstra playing like, oh, we're one win away from turning around. Like, no, you're not, buddy. But I digress. But yeah, anybody you want to highlight? Like, I think that was really, besides the free throws, I think that was my biggest thing was, SGA Tatum. Like, you could make a case who had a better game. Tatum played great, but like Kaysen, Chet, even the Hartenstein minute, but really Chet and Kaysen, getting even decent minutes out of Cambridge. They were targeting Isaiah Joe, and Isaiah Joe actually played okay defense there. Like the top to bottom roster, when you're missing Alex Caruso and you're missing your second best player in J Dub, Chet certainly made an argument for being the second best player. And then meanwhile, Jaylen Brown, horrific game, one of the worst games he's played of the season. And then Pritchard was not very good either, in my opinion. But yeah, the strength of OKC's depth really stood out to me. Anything you want to just add, and you could kind of get into Chet. I thought Chet was just incredible in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And they really needed him to step up with the absence of J-Dub, like you said. And he was coming off a couple Denver games where he was okay. He got in some foul trouble that first one, the second game in their loss, he wasn't that great, and just really came back and played a great game for them. And they really needed that game, as you're saying. And then Aaron Wiggins, who stepped in that starting lineup for J-Dub, who, I mean, over the last several weeks, we've seen some incredible Aaron Wiggins games. He didn't have it at all, but you mentioned it off the bench, right? Isaiah Joe comes in, he holds his own, even when they're trying to target him. Kenrich gives him some good minutes. Hartenstein, like you're saying, the double big lineup. Then it just goes to show the versatility of this OKC team, where there's just there's so many ways to play. And should mention on Boston's side, of course, still missing Kristaps Porzingis, which
Yep.
of course is really hurting them. But Al Horford has been awesome in his stead. But I mean, they didn't really get enough from the bench. As we're talking how good OKC's was and everything, Boston really wasn't getting a whole lot of that. So yeah, just big shout out to Chet, and especially in these upcoming games where J Dub is going to be out. If he can continue playing like this, I mean, OKC just going to keep cruising, as we've seen.
Yeah, and then I want to talk. I don't really need to say about anything about Jason Tatum, but Jaylen Brown, who guarded SGA again. 2 games he was the lead guy, and you hinted at it a little bit. They put Peyton Pritchard on SGA a lot, and they picked him up full course, and they weren't helping. I was like really thrown off by that because, as I just said, Denver in the last game against them, they were aggressive I've ever seen at putting 2 on SGA and getting the ball out of his hands. It was a big reason why, again, Denver shot the ball well in that game. That was a pretty surprising situation to not be able to adapt. Boston played a little bit of zone in this game, too. That was an interesting wrinkle. OKC also played some zone that worked, which, usually you'd think zone against that three-point shooting would be like a bad idea, but it held up pretty well and picked the right spots to do it there. But yeah, just a really nice game for Mark Daignault. As well. But and yeah, like Horford was really good. Derek White was really good too. But I thought it was just a misuse of defensive resources there. But yeah, and then just Jaylen Brown. What a horrible game. Yeah. And it just hammers on my point. Like the OKC rim defense and their ability to take away transition. Jaylen Brown, when he doesn't have those two things to kind of hang his hat on, if his shot's not dropping, like it could be pretty ugly there. But I don't think there's I guess shifting the takeaways here. I don't really have any big takeaways. I just thought, Boston played kind of a crappy, sloppy game. And OKC was the opposite. Like, they were just mistake-free, coasting. Coach pushed the right buttons the whole time. Got production up and down the roster. Like, nobody really had, like, a bad game. Like, yeah, Aaron Wiggins went 0 for 9, but, like, he made an impact, I thought. But that was my biggest takeaway is, like, Boston does this a lot. And OKC, like, almost never does it, which is really just a credit to Mark Daignault.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to add on this? And do you have? I have. Like I said, I don't have any thoughts that are different. I sure whatever I said is cool, but like I hope it's cool. You guys still listening. I hope. I don't really change anything about like where Boston is or OKC.
Yeah, I would say the same thing too. Just OKC, just it feels like every time they come off a loss, they just bounce back really strong, just like they did here. And yeah, on Boston side, you're saying with Jaylen Brown, and it felt like especially that first half, Derek White and Al Horford had some big shots, really to kind of keep them in throughout the game, and just Jaylen never really got in his rhythm, and then we saw how it ended up.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the other late ESPN game, which was more decisive and not as fun game. However, I think there are more takeaways from this one. Minnesota is on fire. Their offense is clicking. They are unbelievably playing with a lot of effort. The crazy stat was they had 12 offensive rebounds to go to 29 second chance points. That is why they cashed in on those, on top of just cashing in on points off turnovers. They hit all the hustle stats. They got the 50-50 balls. It was just like, yo, they are going in there. They're playing so determined. Chris Finch talked about how they're really locked in. The last 2 games, really, these like we saw their offensive rebounding numbers kind of like really dip while Gobert was out. No duh. But the last 2, Gobert back, they are really hitting the boards, and it's really made them look great. We saw what they did to the Spurs, absolutely crushed them there. But yeah, the headline here is like, is Minnesota like a team that could duplicate what they did? I definitely want to talk about Julius Randle. But yeah, we could maybe close with that. But like, I think the lead is like Julius Randle. I mean, he's been playing freaking awesome. Do you have any thoughts on what you've seen out of Julius Randle? Just instant, comes back and they just win games, instant minutes, and instant impact on offense.
Absolutely. We were talking about them last week when Randall had, just coming back, and we were saying,
Mhm.
wow, it really looks complete. He's coming back. And, it's like on offense now where it felt like at the beginning and, towards the beginning of the season. And, Edwards even said it sometimes, he said, I'm going to take a lot of shots. Randall's going to take a lot of shots. And like, that's all. But now Randall, he's just so decisive with it, right? Whenever he gets the ball, like, he's either attacking, he's making decisions quick. And it's not like, beginning of the season where we saw a lot of just almost like a dribble fest, but Randall is just
Mhm.
really playing within the offense, setting everyone up. And you saw last game, he took more of a scoring role, but when he was getting it, like he was attacking, it wasn't a lot of
Mhm.
stalling or everything. So, yeah, I mean, what a win. And it's just, I mean, they've been showing it for the last week since we were talking about them, right? They just keep winning and winning in, pretty strong form.
Yeah, it's their offense is just on fire. They're second in offense
Mhm.
since Julius Randle came back, fourth in half court offense, and they play so slow. And to be that efficient when you're playing such a kind of non-efficient style of basketball, really just speaks to. I mean, we always talk about that, like, oh, Julius Randle, winning most improved player, winning, all NBA nod, like this, he's playing like that right now. With his ability to, hunt matchups, use his size. Denver looks so small yesterday. Looking at the offensive rebounding, and just they couldn't like all their guys were except for Joker, and even Joker wasn't like that undersized. And, we even saw Randall guard him a little bit, and they were like just letting Joker just score. And Randall had the quote saying he'd rather him get 40 than go 30, 20, 20 in that game. But yeah, I thought it was a really good game plan, and just the effort really stood out. But I mean, again, Jamal Murray just absolutely gets owned in this matchup. Credit to Anthony Edwards to go out there and do his stuff on offense, take him out of the game. And then MPJ again, and these two guys is night after night. They play the Wolves. You do not get good games out of Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Jane McDaniels just took MPJ out of this game again. And that's been a really interesting wrinkle. We're so used to McDaniels being on the ball, but Jade McDaniels kind of transforming into more of a chaser role defensively while still hitting the boards and still helping as the low man in rotation when they're running the pick and roll stuff in 2-man game. That's been really awesome. So, but it really starts with Julius Randle, I'd say, is why this team is clicking in a big way. And I mean, we talk a lot about how Julius Randle's that much worse than Cat. If you're getting this Julius Randle, he's like not that much worse than Cat. And he gives you a little bit more juice for being able to put pressure on the rim. Obviously, Cat could drive too, but Julius Randle's like again, this a huge reason why I think the Wolves have really turned around. Anything else you want to add? There, but yeah, I mean their bench was great. I mean Dante plus
Mhm.
23, Nikhil Alexander Walker, and they're just so deep with on ball defense, and they could do it in so many different ways. And they switched the matchups a ton. Like we saw Jaden guard um, uh, Murray at times. We saw, they were just shuffling guys in and out and mixing, keep Denver on their toes there. But yeah, really just a classic effort. We're going to play harder than you and beat you down in your own building, which has been a thing. What they've won all 3 games this season, and they closed them out last year. So, yeah, any other thoughts on the non Randall guys? And hey, you can talk. Randall deserves it.
Yeah, and I think that also too like speaks to like counteracts what we saw from the Denver bench, right? Where you're naming the Wolves guys, the depth and the great minutes they were giving and everything, and Denver just has nothing, right? Where if
Mm-hmm.
Jamal Murray like he's playing like that, I mean, Joker can do all the great stuff he did and all the scoring, but it's just not enough. And before garbage time, I mean, I think the bench had like maybe 2 points of like the whole game, and it's just that's really the problem with Denver right now, and especially while Aaron Gordon is out, and we have to get his in and out of the lineup has been tough for
Mm-hmm.
them. But there's really not a whole lot after them, and it's like Julian Strother, who shouldn't be that big of a piece for them, but like even right now off
Yeah.
the bench, they're just missing any sort of contribution. And I mean, from Denver, for going forward right now, is they've been pushing these main guys the
Mm-hmm.
entire season a ton because Malone has not shown any willingness to trust the bench, and especially while they're down Aaron Gordon, he's not doing that at all. So, I mean, equally impressive for the Wolves, but I think a lot of the concerns we have about Denver was really, shining in that game. And, those games like we saw from Jamal Murray, it's not going to be enough. There's really not a whole lot else they can get to.
Yeah, this the lack of shooting sometimes really hurts, which is a testament to Strother. And they just play the math game to a disadvantage so much. And should have mentioned too that the ability from OKC just to take away the paint from teams. We saw Boston like fire away, man. I mean, they had zero interest in trying to score inside for good reason. I think OKC when they even regard no matter who's in there, Hartenstein, yes or no, you know Chet Holmgren, whatever. Those guys are in and out of the lineup. They don't, Hartstead doesn't play 48 minutes, and they're consistently an awesome rim defense there. Meanwhile, the Nuggets are consistently a team that really, really leans on their rim scoring, really, really leans on their transition. You take those two things away, which the Wolves are very good at doing, which is another pretty big takeaway that I don't even know if it was a takeaway. It just like hammers it home even more that like the Nuggets do not want to see the Minnesota Timberwolves in like I mean at this point like I don't even like they're we saw when the people are trying to avoid the Suns. We could talk about that, but like if the Nuggets are sitting there and like say the Wolves are locked into the the 7 seed, like, do they like punt off and like try to be in the 3 at this point? Like it's almost that's like how bad they've gotten owned, and the whole group everyone's talking about or I don't know if they still are. I imagine they are. I don't listen to stuff anymore. But like Tim Conley like has the blueprint to like beat this team, which I guess we could transition into the Nuggets. Jamal Murray just airball after airball, man. I mean, this is like such a big thing for him and MPJ. There was a lot of comments from Michael Malone saying that like MPJ just they have to ride with him even if he just doesn't have it because he consistently doesn't have it in these big games there when he does have a tougher matchup on him. Like it's pretty insane how this guy is kind of matchup driven. OG kind of he had a good game against OG a while ago, but yeah, anything to this Jamal Murray thing? Is it just tip your hat to the Wolves? For a guy who's such a big clutch playoff performer, playoff Jamal, finals Jamal, this guy just has constantly laid eggs against this Wolves team.
Absolutely right, and I think you got to give a ton of credit to the Wolves and just the way they've—I don't want to say solved them. I mean, but
Mm,
to this point, almost seems like they have at least just in that sense. And you're talking too about Michael Porter, and when he doesn't have it, like Malone said, they got to ride with him. Especially we've seen
yeah.
when they were, in the middle of the season when they had all their guys, we saw him get cut down for Russell
Yep.
Westbrook when they had AG, right? And like, if he doesn't have it, okay, we have other options. But as we're saying, Malone, as the team right now without Aaron Gordon, they don't trust anyone else really outside that starting 5. And if he doesn't have it, well, what answer do they have? And they were desperate. Jokic didn't even sub out in that second half because they didn't have a prayer if he's not out there. It's like, what are they going to do?
Mm,
Yeah, you got to be pretty concerned. And you're talking about, if they are lined up with the Wolves in the playoffs. I mean, you certainly can't be encouraged by that. I don't know
mm,
what the solution is really. I mean, it just Jamal's got to be better, right? I don't.
yeah.
There's no other way to put it. So yeah, really discouraging loss, and really showed a lot of the issues that we had seen with them against the Wolves in the past.
Yeah, and they do it so often, man. This team they just count on these comebacks. So I mean, it works out. They're really good in the fourth quarter, but like so often they just put themselves behind, and if they don't have things click in the second half, like they're going to lose games, whether they're home or not. So I don't think it's a problem. Like I still think they've got a chance to come out of the West, which I guess we could kind of transition, which I think is probably, like I said, the big question here. If looking at the West here, is Minnesota like we kind of like they're not in there. We were like, oh yeah, maybe the Warriors. A lot has changed since we podcasted, and it's this Wolves
Yeah.
team, coming in here. The Warriors are still crushing, but obviously, OKC. I think Denver still has a chance. I think the Lakers still have a chance. I think the Warriors have a chance. Like, do you give the Wolves a chance now? They're gonna be. I think they got a shot to climb up to 5 or 6. It should also note though, let me bring up their schedule because it is soft here. They are going. Don't worry about home and away. Orlando, Utah, Indiana, New Orleans, Indiana, Phoenix, Detroit, Denver, Brooklyn, Philly, Milwaukee, Memphis, Brooklyn, Utah. So a couple Utahs, a couple New Orleans games. The Suns are terrible. They get Indiana a couple times, Brooklyn, Philly, tanking. Like half their schedule is teams who are like trying to lose here. So they're like gonna win a lot of games here. So they're for sure live to potentially climb up to the 5 seed to put pressure on them. But like I said off the top, like are they capable of doing it again where they're making a run and could get hot enough to go to the Western Conference Finals?
I mean, this version they've shown since Randall's been back, you got to believe it, right? I mean, you mentioned at the beginning with their offense, it's like they're playing as well as, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's the top echelon of the West right now, the way they're playing. And, if they keep staying healthy like this, there's no reason to think not, right? Randall has just, I mean, the impact he's had and just the
Mm-hmm.
difference from the beginning of the season has been so, I mean, just so stark. And this was a team I was really down on at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And it really came down to offense. And I mean, now it seems they've stemmed a lot of those concerns, and it's happened so quick, right? I mean, Randall came
Hmm.
back. They didn't. I mean, it didn't take really any time. He just seemed in, and he's just playing like the best basketball we've seen
Hmm.
with the Wolves. So look, it's hard really not to think that they're right there in that next tier after OKC, the way they're playing right now. And we were talking about on the pod last week. They've just kept winning since then, and you brought up their schedule. So yeah, you got to be pretty optimistic about their chances to just keep climbing up.
Yeah, I mean, you could talk about how their schedule's been soft, but I mean, they're handling it. Beat the Suns by almost 20. Beat the Sixers handily. They played one close game, and it was at Miami. Shout out Miami nightlife. Miami actually played a close game for once. But yeah, they're I'm kind of buying, man. I don't know if they're getting. I don't. The big question is like, and we're kind of making this pretty clear. Are they going to get this Julius Randle? Like, half the time going forward. And the matchups for him have been pretty good. A lot of just kind of undersized guys, Miami a little bit, but we'll see. Not ready to be sold yet, but like I said, if Julius Randle's getting this version, if we're getting this version, they're for sure live there. So let's talk a little bit about the Lakers. We've got LeBron, who's going to miss some time here. Had to travel back to LA for more treatment. It's not a devastating thing; like he'll be back for the playoffs. But we've seen pretty early returns of things not going great, headlined by getting like it was a close game against the Nets, but like that was a really bad loss to lose that game. Luka was not very good. They really pressured them. And they weren't prepared, man. Like I'm a freaking blog boy, and I know that like the Nets are gonna pressure ball handlers. Like I talk about it every freaking article I write. I'm just a freaking blog boy, and JJ Redick is not a blog boy, and he coached them up to be prepared, and they still threw the ball around the gym and just didn't take care of the ball. And like they really missed LeBron. They were so sloppy. The quotes from JJ Redick were so good, saying that like they were they were taking shortcuts was what he was saying. Like, oh yeah, we just didn't pay attention to the details. So the question is, I mean, they're gonna miss LeBron. They're gonna start losing games. I think 2-3 is like off the table for me, honestly. But like we were saying, like the Wolves, they're four back. That's a really tough hill to climb in the short period. But level of concern with the Lakers, possibly dropping down a little bit here. And just what have you seen from this team who, they were a little bit shorthanded. Jackson Hayes is still banged up. They're really missing that piece. But yeah, the Lakers getting banged up here. What are you kind of looking forward or not looking forward to as a Lakers fan for the next couple weeks here without LeBron?
Yeah, I think the not looking forward to, unfortunately, is more the move right now. And they really needed that Nets game coming
Yeah.
up on this road trip because, like, we were talking about the Wolves schedule. I mean, Lakers tonight, they got Milwaukee on the road, and then tomorrow they've got Denver on the road. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think you're like, you're happy if you split those. That's like the best case of the version. And we'll even see if Luca, plays both of those games. I mean, he played over 40 minutes in that Brooklyn game.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't enough, but I mean, you said with LeBron, it puts a ton of pressure on Luca, and not just LeBron too. Where they're missing Rui right now, they're missing Dorian in that Nets game. They're just Jackson Hayes is still out. Yeah, as far as holding on to top three seed right now, especially the way the teams are playing behind them right now, I think it's more just tread water time for Lakers and just
Mm-hmm.
hope you can, hold in that like top five right now because I mean, not even just the Wolves and Warriors, right? Where Houston gets Van Vliet back, and
Mm-hmm.
Memphis has shown some life, and it's we were talking last week on the pod, everything was rosy and looking up, and now all of a
Yep.
sudden it's like how not are they going to fall? Is how much are they going to fall down the West? Yeah, really brutal. The Alex Len signing, they tried starting him last game with Dorian out. He's just not really a rotation guy at this point, but they don't have a ton of options right now. So, you got to be pretty concerned right now about how it's going to look. And especially with the schedule coming up, I think, it's more about where are they going to fall rather than can they hold up?
Yep. And as someone I haven't really been doing a lot of best ball drafts lately for playoffs, but Lakers are probably going to drop a little bit. I think you don't have to take maybe
Mhm.
Lakers at the maybe you can get them at the 2-3 turn if they start to fall a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. People will probably still take them. I haven't been drafting lately, but yeah, definitely. I don't. I'm not. And does this change a little bit? Like obviously, like you said, short term we're concerned, but
Mhm.
long term maybe losing a little bit of continuity for Luca and LeBron developing more chemistry. Are there any like long-term concern, assuming LeBron comes back healthy, which is a fair assumption. Soft tissue injury on an older guy, that's kind of concerning. So that aside, taking away the short term, does it add any long-term concerns for you? Long-term meaning, playoffs this year.
I don't think so. I think they showed enough, when they were fully healthy that we can trust that,
Mm-hmm.
I think they're still firmly, when healthy, in that next tier behind OKC. As far as like you're saying, like how far in the playoffs, I think the drop in seeding is really, could get catastrophic depending how far
Mm-hmm.
down. But I still think, as we've seen, fully healthy and constructed, like they're still going to be fine. And at this point, you just want LeBron to be fully healthy, right? You don't want to rush him back and try and like salvage whatever seeding you're getting and everything. So no, I think a lot of what we said last week about all the encouraging things we've seen fully healthy still stand. And I think it's just more about in the short term, how are they going to tread water throughout this period without LeBron and without Rui and Hayes? And we'll see when they can get back, because this team right now is, as we saw in the Nets game, is just not really set up to win a ton of games.
Yeah, they don't have very many gimmies. You talked about the back-to-back. Milwaukee's playing pretty good basketball right now. Fairly healthy as well. That's a tough one in Milwaukee. Like they're, I think, 6.5-point dogs tonight. Denver's going to be at Denver off a loss. Joker off a
Mhm.
loss hasn't been as good. I used to always write about that. He hasn't been as impactful, but that's probably a loss. In a back-to-back, they might even sit
Yeah.
Luka for that one. Um,
Hmm.
and then Phoenix, that's certainly not a win. I'm sorry, not like a lock of a win. San Antonio, certainly their most winnable game here, and then Denver, Milwaukee, Chicago, winnable one. At Orlando, at Indiana, at Chicago, at Memphis. Memphis is going to be going for that game, and then I mean this is Houston, Golden State, New Orleans at home should win that one. At OKC, at Dallas should win that one. Versus Houston at home, that's not going to be easy. That's going to be a lot to play for. And then at Portland, last game of the year, and Portland's been playing pretty tough. So that's not. There were like maybe two like gimme wins in there. So yeah, I've got some concerns. Anything you want to add just on schedule?
Yeah, I mean, and that shows why that Nets loss was so tough, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can't, these winnable games, quote unquote, like you got to take them, where you got this back to back now. And you said like, Luka's questionable, so it's not guaranteed he's even playing both these legs. So, yeah, like those games you're talking about, like Chicago and Phoenix, all them, they got to win those, because if
Mm-hmm.
they're not even winning those, I mean, it could be a free fall. So, yeah, it's pretty concerning seating wise. And just at this point, you're just hoping that all these guys that are out can, get healthy in some time.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's get to the fun part. Or the not fun part, depending on if you play DFS and you jam Jamal Shead, who I got really wrong. And I kind of feel bad about it, but like this has only happened like twice that I could think of, where a rookie, kind of goes out there and has earned more minutes and then gets completely rug pulled here. Doesn't play in the second half at all after being plus 17 in 12 minutes. And then after the game, Darko says, "Oh yeah, we wanted to give Rodit and AJ Lawson minutes to grow on the ball." Like, okay, buddy, sure you did. It's just a complete lie. When they're not playing Chris Boucher, they didn't play Jakob Pertl for the last quarter and a half. So like you're telling me you went into that game and you wanted to play six guys for almost half the basketball game? Okay, buddy. Like you weren't tagging. We believe you. This is like so obvious to me, and I'm curious to see. Darko did cover himself, like I said, and I'll talk about Jason Kidd who didn't, which resulted in the 750K fine there. But I mean, this is like so obvious to me, that they were like clearly trying to give this game away. They didn't with Philly, losing it. Shout out to Philly for losing this game. We could talk about that, but yeah, I mean, what the hell? I don't know, man. Take this wherever you want. Are you pissed? Whatever you want to say, but this Jamal Shead thing, I did not see coming at all. I thought he was hurt, but nope, we saw him sit on the bench. Really, really odd there. But yeah, take it away on this thing on this Jamal Shead, not playing in the second half of a clear tank.
Yeah, I mean, what the hell is right? Like,
Yeah.
look, they're all the main guys are saying right. IQ is out, RJ is out, Scotty Barnes is out, Pirtle doesn't even get to 20 minutes. Jamal Shed, this rookie, it's like you can't even let him play. Like, we really have
Mm-hmm.
to take it to this degree, like where we're just gonna give it, Colin Castleton has to play the entire second half. I mean, look, it's obvious, like we've seen Utah been doing this like all season as far as like, sitting main guys when they want to sit, but like
Yeah.
That almost felt like a different level of this Jamal Shead to like just say, okay, you can't play in the second half. We need to see all these other
Mhm.
guys. It's incredibly frustrating, and I think what's craziest about it now is this is not like the last week of April, right? We
Mhm.
have a month left of the regular season. Like this is not. It's not like the countdown to the end of the season. We have a ton of basketball left to play still, and it's it's really discouraging for the league. I mean, going forward, we have no idea how to project these rotations, right? We don't know the motivations. We don't know even guys who are Jamal Shead who was starting, and we should have expected a full game. It's like, I mean, it's really frustrating. It's really bad for the league, and we saw the Jazz get fined, and I thought that was funny where they singled out March 5th and Laurie Markkinen. I mean, they could have just said the entire last 2 months of tanking, but it's really ridiculous. And unfortunately, last night with the Rat, we saw like the absolute worst of this with Jamal Shead benching at halftime.
Yeah, and this goes back to the situation where we talked about where they just sat out. Again, this is like the only scenario I could think of was one of the best tanks ever. As I noted, that was 750K fine. It was clear as day that Dallas was trying to lose that game. They had a chance to like hang on to their playoff lives, but they were competing with the Bulls to keep their pick. That resulted in Derek Lively, and they just punted it off as hard as they could. And interestingly enough, it's pretty funny that AJ Lawson in that game starts the second half for Jaden Hardy, young, somewhat promising, not like true blue lottery talent, like kind of like Jamal Shead is. And they just, Jamal, and I remember this game so clearly because I had a freaking Hardy over and he like almost hit it in the first half. And he hits a buzzer beater with the three at the halftime. And I was like, oh, yeah, I just need like a bucket to cash this puppy. And like, nope, doesn't come out. They sit him out there. And then Jason Kidd, man, just after the game, he's like, oh, yeah, it was a decision from the front office. Like, he straight up told the media he must hate Tim McMahon because Tim McMahon, like, led him so hard for this question. He's like, oh, yeah, it was a decision. And he even said we have to, like, trust Nico Harrison to, like, make the right moves for the team. Whoops. And it's just like, meanwhile, I swear that, like, Raptors front office like showed them the clip, showed Darko the Jason Kidd clip. Be like, yo, this is what Jason Kidd said. Don't do that. Like, it was strategy. Blah 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 blah. And I don't know, man. I hope the NBA sees through it. This is really bad, and like it's pretty funny. This comes on the same day that the NBA finally fined the Utah Jazz 100K for sitting out Laurie Markkinen, missing Q tags, missing games for weeks at a time for a back injury he suffered like 4 months ago. So but yeah, this is outrageous. I don't know if you want to talk about like where are we headed here? Is this like how bad is this going to get? Like anything you're like I want to talk a little bit about our process for like how we're trying to do this for minutes projections. DFS, we're gonna have to talk about this every single day. Yeah, I guess looking forward, how do we handle this right now?
Yeah, and like you're even talking about the Mouse situation too. Like that was at the very, very end of the season, right? That
April
was like
7th,
they knew
second to
yeah,
last game of the
exactly. Like
year.
that was exactly right now. We're in the middle of March. Like to be
Yeah.
dealing with this level of like, whatever you want to call it is just really, really bad for the
Mhm.
league. There's just no other way to put it. And you're talking about process wise and going forward from projections and how other people just interact with NBA. We're kind of in the dark, right? We don't know what the
Mhm.
motivations are for any team, and we saw a little bit with the Wizards a few days ago with Jordan Poole in the fourth. Although compared to this Raptors situation, it's just, I mean, it's like a drop in the bucket. This was the worst on tap. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, look, I don't know the solutions or anything, but I mean, if we're going to go another month of this where the Raptors are just going to be kind of, just gunning to lose games and doing whatever it takes, I mean, even benching a rookie at halftime, like, look, it's one thing to sit your main, like we've seen with Utah, right? They'll sit the games they think are winnable. They won't play any of the guys they think they'll help them win. That's one thing, but this was like, I mean, this was just on another level. And yeah, process wise for us, this just becomes a nightmare. This really and it's unfortunate. We want to put out the best projections, everything we think we can for people, but when we're put in these situations like with the Raptors, I mean, this is going to set up to be really, really tough month,
Yep.
unfortunately. And yeah, it's like you said too. It's funny it came on the same day of the Jazz getting the fine that we see this ridiculous move by them.
Yeah, and I guess we should hit on Chris Boucher too. I did the DFS show, and I was pretty clear. Like, if Boucher's off the bench, I'd be really light, just because we've seen him not play. We saw him get DMP CD'd even before he had all this, the wisdom tooth surgery. Like, he's. It was pretty clear to me he wasn't playing, and they Darko said after the game that like they had a talk and they want to give minutes to younger guys. Yeah, and we know, like, we Jamal Shead's a younger guy, right? Like it was pretty clear that that was the narrative when like once we saw Colin Castleton start, it's like okay, they clearly have front court depth issues if they're going to put Colin Castleton as their starting four, and like that was pretty easy to see coming. But the market didn't have that. The props market had Boucher line full, way forward than we did, and we were showing like absurd EV. We had to like, all right, man, we had to adjust our projections because that line looks so bad, and it's if you don't know that there's void risk on it. It may have been like a bad, it was still a good bet, obviously, because like I don't think he was going to play that much, but the fact that it could avoid, he could have played it a lot, or it's really hard to navigate. And just we doing the Wizards minutes today, like the amount of detail that we need to put into stuff, and like there's still a really good chance we're going to be wrong, just because hey, like Jordan Poole, 2 out of the last 3 times they haven't
Yeah.
been cutting his minutes down, but the one time they really cut him down, didn't play him for the last quarter and a half in a close game. Meanwhile, they did play him in the Detroit game; he would have played full minutes. Like it's just hard to put it into a number in our projection that shows what this team, what the right move is. So it just, if you're going to play DFS and if you're going to be betting into these situations on props or whatever, one, I would say, for if you're betting spreads in these tanking games where they're going off, like you just know you are really at the mercy of like variance. I will not touch it, man. I'm like, if one team has more incentive to tank, if both teams are equally incentivized to tank, like you're at the mercy of just like a hot shot, like I'm just off it. Do you have any thoughts there from just, I don't know. I think DFS. I hopefully laid it out, but any thoughts on just like betting it, and because a lot of the people listen to right now, I'm sure, are betting, trying to find edge in this, and it's really tough.
Absolutely, and we had, even one of the guys on our team yesterday saying like, I don't know if I want to play another slate after this Jamal
Mm-hmm,
Shead
mm-hmm,
like thing. It's, you prep all day, getting ready for a slate and everything, and just all blows up because of a decision like that.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate right now, right? Where however whatever you bet on them, if you're playing DFS, props, sides, whatever, how do you like? It's just so discouraging, to put in all this minutes, all this preparation, all this time,
mm-hmm,
all this money, and everything, and then you don't really even know what the team's playing for or sentiment. Like it's
mm-hmm.
just you said it today with like the Wizards today. We don't know if Jordan Poole is gonna play the second half, if he's gonna close, if it's close, if it's a blowout, maybe they'll bring him in, and it's like we're always trying to put range of outcomes and
Mm-hmm.
projections, but when we're dealing with stuff like this, it's really hard to put that into a single number. And yeah, like you said with the Boucher lines, right? The odds makers where they have Boucher, I mean, he had monster line as if he's playing a lot of minutes, and he doesn't get in the game at all. And they only have 9 available. And in
Yep.
the second half without Jamal Shead, they only have 7 available, and they still
Yep.
will play. It's yeah, it's really unfortunate. And I can understand why people who are betting on this, however they are, and props, DFS, whatever, why you could get so discouraged. Where it's like not a money thing; it's a time thing too, where you invest all of this
Yeah.
and you don't know what teams are going to do. It's really discouraging just all around, and just really really just sad almost to see what happened yesterday. And it look, it's been a problem. It's not like yesterday with the Raptors, like the only time I've seen, but this was just almost like
Yep.
a everything. It was like the maximum like of whatever we've seen of like coming together into one.
Yeah, and I mean, the Jamal Shed is like the perfect illustration, not only from just the lack of bodies, but like AJ Lawson, like he's combo guard. Jared, like they put Jared Roden on the ball. Like imagine that, man. Like the fact that you wanted to lose this game so badly that you're putting Jared Roden. Like we wanted to. He was like, oh yeah, we wanted to develop Jared Roden on a point as a point. Like come on, dude. Like this is total. Like there's nobody who watched the NBA who thinks like, oh yeah, we want to make Jared Roden a point guard. Like get out of here, bro. I mean, like the disrespect to
Yeah.
like anyone, like you're so clearly lying to us that it's just like I don't know, man. This is like almost just as bad as Kid. It's just Kid like telegraphed it, and I don't know. Like I said, it was really poor form, and it really makes me salty. And yeah, we're gonna have to really really think through. Like I said, it took freaking usually it takes me I don't know 10 15 minutes to check a team. with the minutes guys. It took me like a half an hour to like check every range of outcomes on these guys. It's going to be so much work. And honestly, like, it's harder to write matchups too. Like, I want to write matchups today, and usually my routine is like, all right, start writing during the morning. Like, I can't write during the morning anymore because like I don't know the injury report, I don't know all this stuff. It just makes it really. I'm not trying to complain. I love the challenge, but this getting this part of the year this early, like this is just really tasty, and I don't know. Like, I don't. Is Cooper Flag that good? Is that what's going on here? I don't know, man. It's pretty nasty here. So yeah, no, but yeah, we'll be ready for it. I know it sounds like we're complaining a lot, but yeah, not trying. We'll still be good to go. I'm excited for the challenge for sure. Anything else, to encourage people, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe discourage them.
Unfortunately, on this, so this is a lot of description, but a lot of teams that we're
Yeah.
talking about the two good games before. I don't want it; it's all doom and gloom, but
Yeah.
I just want to emphasize again where we're in the middle of March right now, right? This is not the
Yeah.
last week of the season, and teams are like gunning for what's what. This is we have a month of basketball left to play, so
Mm-hmm.
and the Raptors really, I mean, I guess set the standard of maximum tanking, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
The Jazz for the last several months have been in a version of their own,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of with their tank. And this was just on a different level. So yeah, like I said, I don't want to take a lot. There's a lot of great teams playing league. I don't want to make it all doom and gloom, but unfortunately, in
Yeah.
this situation with last night, just really bad taste in our mouths. And yeah, we still have, like you said, I mean, Raptors projections next game is going to be it's going to be really tough. We're gonna,
Yeah.
like you're saying, thinking of the range of outcomes, every player, like it just takes it to a whole nother level. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and like you said with the dark mode, almost like demeaning in a way to say stuff like Jared Roden. And you shared a tweet with me too, where he said, I think it was they had over 100 points
Yeah.
with two-way players or something outrageous. It's really something else.
Yeah, it was let me get that note there. Yeah, one of the Raps beats had shared that 104 of the 118 points were scored by undrafted players. Some most by undrafted players since at least 1951. Oh, I guess at 1951 there were a lot of that's as far as the data goes. But I would imagine they didn't score 154 points there. But yeah, really good note there. Yeah, but like I said, I'm hoping this normalizes a little bit, but we're just going to have these curveballs every once in a while. It's going to be really tough to spot. But on it's just to see, so many 40 minutes out of some guys. It's just this early is really tough. But yeah, I think there'll be some edge in it, but just know that, if you think you have edge, it could go away real quick for something that was so far off the radar. I mean, like John and I were talking about, like you would think there's only 240 minutes. You would think that if you have 8 guys available, your starting point guard would get a good allotment of them. Not true anymore. So, all right, that's it. Any other last rants for you? I think we said it all.
Yeah, I've said it all. Yeah, and we could probably go another hour with this, but I think
Yeah.
we've laid it out our feelings on all of
Yep.
this.
Yeah, the Pelicans could be eliminated from the playoffs today, which I'm like, I start seeing these like eliminated playoffs. It's like, oh no, not another one there. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. It'll be fun. We'll try to keep it going here. So yeah, if you haven't checked this out yet, Establish the Run. As you can tell, we will be doing projections regardless of the situation. We will put our heart and soul into it and deal with the frustrations and not vent them to you every podcast. I promise. But it'll be a challenge over this period of time. I'm excited for that. I always love new challenges. So check us out, Establish the Run. Still have the injury show, which is mandatory now. If you play anything DFS, the injury show is behind the paywall. I'll be grinding all the news I can get for you guys to set you up, and it's going to be. The show was over now yesterday. We're going to have a lot of hour shows. So check us out over there at establishtheRun.com/NBA. Appreciate you guys. Catch you guys next time.